about whatever. All right, everybody. Welcome to the world's okayest mountain bike podcast. And on this week, we actually did something we normally don't do, and that's get somebody fast. Now, we had Brian Roggeveen on back in the day, and he's super fast, long distance racer. But today, we actually got someone who goes downhill faster than we do, which isn't saying a whole lot.
I mean, to be fair, we've only qualified that he's faster than you. We didn't actually confirm that he's faster than me.
That's
right.
That's true.
Good point, Kyle. It is confirmed that he's faster. It's been confirmed several times that he's faster than me. If we could ever get you to a race, we could probably confirm it there.
I think my only chance would be on a dual slalom course.
I don't know. He is kind of ex-BMXer. They tend to be good at that kind of stuff, right?
I was going to say, I raced Pro BMX for 2 years, so dual slalom's right up my alley. I've never done it, but sounds like it's a lot of fun.
Dual slalom is the only it was the only segment of mountain biking that I was exceptionally fast at compared to wildly mediocre at everything else. Like I'm okay at BMX, but like dual slalom, for whatever reason, I was able to be pretty competitive at back when it was actually a thing, like 10, 15 years ago.
Well, that's a fun trip down memory lane. Let's talk about today. We have the man who won the overall and the pro class at the Chubb Enduro. And Jordan, I'm going to let you pronounce your last name just to make sure everybody knows how to pronounce it correctly.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. It's Sheiderich. It's
Sheiderich?
just Sheiderich. It's pretty much just how it looks. It's pronounced just how you would expect it to be if you look at it. But I get a lot of crazy pronunciations. So
I would have said Sheiderich. So Sheiderich isn't a far cry from what I would have said.
No, you're close. You're close.
Well, anyway, we got him on here. I'm pulling up the results. So as far as I can tell, you won with a time of 11:43. Looks like next best time that I've seen is 12:07.
I don't think anybody else was sub 12 that I saw.
No, doesn't look like it. I had one of my worst races ever. I don't know how much more time I could have potentially had in me. Had 2 crashes and just some really bad no legs stages. But that's not why we're on here. We're here today to talk to Jordan and get some perspective from a fast guy. Now, Jordan, about, say 30 minutes ago, I was texting you, and you were still on your way home from riding. And I called you earlier today at lunchtime, and I think you were either on your way back to work or on your way to the trails to ride. So How much riding are you doing right now?
So once the trails open up in Kansas City area and we're able to ride, I will ride for 45 minutes to an hour on lunch. And that'll typically be like a sprint ride, and I'm just going all out as hard as I can. Or I'll just be out doing a recovery ride. And then in the evening, I'll do it just depends on the day. Some days I'm training someone on the trail after work, and some days I'm going out for a big ride, or like tonight I just kind of went out and we just kind of had some fun. Wednesday nights is like typically a group ride at one of our trails out here called Wyco. I'm trying to ride twice a day, and sometimes I'm working out in the morning. So
you're riding 2 a day, 7 days a week, or probably 6 days a week at this point, you think?
No, probably 5 days a week. I'll ride twice a day if the weather permits it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to put in a lot of miles. I mean, that's the best. There's nothing that compares to riding, like just hard miles out on the trails is going to give you, in my experience, the best results. Now, I did train really hard this winter in the gym, like harder than I ever have. So I definitely try to ride as much as I can. And when I ride, I ride with a purpose. Like a lot of people don't want to ride with me because when I go out and ride, I'm hammering, as hard as I can. So, I literally just got home. I'm still wearing my riding gear right now, and it's almost 9:00.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
My wife gets frustrated.
I know you live up somewhere in the Kansas City area.
Yeah.
So what's kind of your favorite trail up there to go hit?
Oof. I mean, I've got a few. It depends on what I'm trying to ride that day. So I would say all around. Man, that's a tough call. I would say all around the best trail out here is probably Wyandotte County Lake. And that's where I came from tonight, which they do for years. They've had an event they do on Wednesday nights. It's kind of, they don't post anything. Just everyone kind of knows it's Wyco Wednesday. So, and there's multiple groups to go out. So like there's a free ride group that goes out. There's a slow old guys just kind of having a good time. And then everyone, like, they're still there right now having a fire and drinking beer and shooting just talking or whatever. So, but Wyco's great because you've got fast single track that's flowy and, tons of flat corners. It's great for working on cornering skills. And then it drives out really fast, pretty fast there, not nearly as fast as Chubb. That place is insane. But you also have the bridle trail, which there's a bridle trail loop, which if you don't know, bridle trails, horseback riding trails. And it has the most elevation per mile in Kansas City, and it's also the chunkiest and rockiest. So it's the best place to go to train for enduro racing. A lot of people don't ride it because it's very, very difficult. It's actually, I would say it's more chunky than Chubb. Some of the climbs are like you're just pushing the bike. It's tough. So me and Cade, the kid that I was riding with that you met, or that both you guys met over the weekend, who I think he took 4th in expert. That's where we go to train. And the other thing too that's nice about the bridle is they don't care if we ride it no matter what the conditions are. So like Kansas City's pretty tough when it comes to riding in the wet because our trails are all clay.
Yeah, I think most of the Midwest is kind of like that.
Yeah. Pretty much, other than like the Ozark Trail, you can pretty much ride all that no matter what the weather's like. But so tell me, like, what did you think of the Chubb Enduro? I know you didn't race it last year when we were in 38-degree weather and soaking wet the entire time. What did you think of it this year? Relative to actually, before you tell us that, give us just a little bit of your racing background, where you're from. I know you're from New York originally.
Yeah.
How'd you end up here?
So I grew up racing BMX. I raced NBL BMX from when I was, I don't know, I would say I started racing when I was 10 or 11. Never really got into mountain biking. I didn't get into mountain biking until years and years later, probably 8 years ago I got into mountain biking. Anyways, I grew up racing BMX. I raced till I was probably 17 or 18. Then I stopped and ended up joining the military. Make a long story short, ended up joining the military, and I was in the Army for 6 years, and I was stationed at Fort Riley for the most part of that time. So that's how I got into Kansas.
Well, thank you for serving.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate the support.
Yep.
So did 6 years there. Never really stopped riding, and that's kind of when I got into mountain biking. I was still BMXing, and actually I was one of the guys out in, if you ever heard of Holiday Trails in Manhattan, Kansas, they're some of the best dirt jumps in the Midwest, and it's not really a secret, but no one really knows about it because BMX trail riding isn't a very big, it's not a huge following. But I think it's the best part of BMX riding. But anyways, so Holiday Trails in Manhattan, Kansas are pretty, I mean, they have 2 Rollins that are both over 10 feet tall out in the middle of the woods, and in this property that someone owns that they don't care about. It's behind like a police station. You park in like a bowling alley. You go, you know what I mean? So
it's like semi-legal trail poaching.
Right.
Kind of reminds me a little
old,
of the anthills in Houston, but
Sounds like
owners
South
been-
Country too.
known.
Like
Yeah, it sounds like the
they've been
dirt
in
jumps
they've
here.
been in contact with the owners, and like the owners like, well, this land always floods, so we don't really care. Do whatever you want, kind of thing. So,
Like,
anyways,
don't tell us what you're doing, so
Right.
we can't be
so
responsible.
I think if you go on YouTube, you can find some random clips of the holiday trails. Like they used to do a trail jam every year, but
Yeah.
anyway, so I got in with those guys, and then one of the main guy, Jay, who started those trails in like 1996 years ago, was in the Army too, and that's how he got there. And he was a big mountain biker, so he got me into mountain biking. That's where it all started. And then this was probably 2012, and so then I kind of got into mountain biking, and then I started racing BMX again. And if anybody knows about BMX racing, it used to be MBL and ABA. There was two different sanctioning bodies. Well, I raced MBL years ago, and then I stayed up with BMX racing and watched it a lot, and I was like, I'll never be competitive. So I was getting close to getting out of the Army. I knew that I wasn't going to stay in because I have my airframe and power plant certification. I got when I got out of high school, so I was going to get into aviation, and I mainly was just using the Army as a stepping like stone to get some experience to be able to use it in the real world, because I was like, I want to ride bikes, like that's what I want to do, and it was harder to do that in the military. So I forgot where I was going with that. So anyways, I was getting close to getting out, and my wife now, who was my girlfriend at the time, she was going to K-State. She's like, why don't you start racing BMX? You're always talking about it. You show me your trophies and all these videos of you riding. So I got into racing BMX again. So I raced intermediate, and I won the state series in Kansas. And I'm like, okay. So next year I moved
in Kansas at that time. Was that NBL or ABA? Just curious.
It's USA BMX now.
It's USA BMX now. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
so it was USA BMX when you got back into it.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
So
yeah, the St. Louis track was ABA up until USA. So that's why I was curious.
Right. So yeah, so I was it was a learning curve to me because they adopted more of the ABA style racing, and all of their points and how you progress through your motos and all that, it was ABA. So I had to learn how all that worked. And like your gate start was different, like the way they announced was different and all that stuff. So
random start.
Yeah, exactly. So that wasn't an NBL thing. So so I raced intermediate for a year, then I raced expert for a year, and I did really well. And then I was at a clinic, and if anyone knows who Bubba Harris is, he's like was a really big time BMX racer in the 90s and 2000s, like super fast. So I was doing a clinic with his dad, and he was there, and I was talking to him about it. And I was like 29 at the time, or 28. I'm 31 now. And I was like, man, I want to race pro, but I don't know. He's like, just sign up pro. Who cares? So I was like, whatever. I'm not getting any younger. So I signed up, and I raced 2 years of pro. And I think the second year I went to the Grand Nationals in Tulsa, and I took like 14th overall, which is a pretty good thing. Like, A Pro BMX, there's like 140 dudes. So I was like, hell yeah. I made it. I was like, I think I made it into like the semis at Grands, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So then a couple guys out here in Kansas City were like, I started getting into mountain biking more and more. And they're like, dude, you need to try racing enduro. Like, you would just destroy enduro racing. And I'm like, all right. So they brought me out this was 2018, and they only had this race once. It was the Southern Enduro Series, and it was the Love It Enduro. It was the Ouachita Mountains.
I know what you're talking about. I wasn't at that one, but I know what you're talking about.
They had it one time, and they haven't been able to get like clearance from the state or whatever, or whoever owns that area, because I think it's Indian land or something. I don't know the logistics of all of it, but they haven't been able to get the permits to clear since then, because that was probably one of the toughest enduros I ever did, and it was my first one, and it was raining, and it was like 38 degrees. And I signed up pro. Everyone's like, dude, you race pro BMX, you got to sign up pro or you're sandbagging. So I'm like, whatever, I'll sign up pro. So I go off to this event, no idea what I'm doing. And it was a point-to-point enduro. So like they dropped you off at the west end of the Ouachita Lake, and you literally had to ride 33 miles or 32 miles and 7 or 8 stages during these 32 miles in the rain. So you know what I mean? Like there was only one checkpoint in the middle.
That is miserable.
It was brutal. And we were all soaking wet within 5 minutes because it was raining. So I go out there all, no idea what I'm doing. And I think I took 4th or 5th with some pretty big names that were on the podium. And I was like in shock. I'm like, what? No way. I think Hogan Matson was on the podium and Garrett Steinmetz was on the podium.
Those are some strong riders, yeah.
I'm trying to think who else was on there. And I was like, and Garrett talked to me afterwards because at the time, if you guys know Garrett Steinmetz, he was the manager at Trek in Shawnee. Yeah. And he's like, are you going to keep racing enduro? And I was like, yeah. And I'm going to start training for it. He's like, shakes his head. He's like, damn. So I was like, all right, apparently I'm doing something right. And dude, during that race, I think I crashed twice and both my quads cramped up because I'm a BMX racer. I'm used to sprinting for 35, 40 seconds and then resting for hours. So like I'm going out to this enduro race and I'm like pedaling up all these steep hills. And I got done with stage 3. I'll never forget it. And my buddy Dustin was down at the bottom of the stage, like rubbing my quads because they were like just cramped. I couldn't pedal.
I don't even know how you managed to finish because I remember I was riding the Berryman Loop one time in like January. I probably hadn't ridden for a couple months really since like October or November. I remember with like 10 miles to go, I got a leg cramp and it just locked up.
Yeah.
And I had to bail out and ride down the road for like 7 miles with my seat down so my legs wouldn't straighten out.
Yep.
I don't know how you finished.
No,
I started cramping at Chubb, pushing my bike up stage 5.
Everybody saw it too.
Shout out to the Treco boys, Jake Strazard. I don't know how to say his last name, and his friend. Sorry, I forgot his name. I know they're the Treco guys. They hooked me up with a goo with amino acids and electrolytes and a salt pill, and I was good to go after that.
Yep, man, salt tabs will take you a long way. Yeah, I don't know. I finished stage 3 at that Love It Enduro, and it was one of the harder stages of the race. And I just remember laying down because like both my legs were completely straight and locked out, and like I couldn't bend them. You know what I mean? Like I was screaming in pain, and my buddy Dustin's just like rubbing my quads. He's like, "Dude, you'll be all right." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not even gonna make it to the next stage. I don't know what you're talking about." It was terrible.
So they just loosened back up eventually, or what? Like, how'd you get out of there?
I just kept going. Everyone was feeding me food and stuff. I didn't have anything with me. I had one water bottle. It was terrible, dude.
That is the great thing about enduro, man. People take care of you. Like, if they've got extra, they'll share it.
And we all finished in the dark. That's how crazy this race was. It was nuts. And it really bums me out that they haven't been able to have it again, just because they haven't. I don't know what every time they put in requests or permits, like they never get accepted or whatever, because that would be a great race. But
have you ever done O-Rock?
Yeah, O-Rock. I mean, O-Rock's pretty much the best race to do, best enduro to do in the Midwest, as far as I'm concerned.
For now.
Well, yeah, until Shepherd opens. But I mean, I think even with Shepherd open, I still think O-Rock is a more legitimate enduro because you're traversing it's so raw and you're out in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean?
It's long, yeah.
And you're
it's just
covering
not
a huge
steep
area. Yeah, it's not steep. Yeah. I mean, Shepherd's going to be more bike parkish, where you're just climbing up to the top and ripping it down. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's not going to be legit. It's going to be rad. But O-Rock is like, if you want to send someone out to do a gnarly enduro, that's somewhere to send them. I'm not doing O-Rock this year. I considered it, and I'm like, that's too much to do right before BME. You know what I mean? Like,
you'd be pretty fried.
Well, not even that you'd be pretty fried, but when you're moving at a high pace, I mean, I've pretty much broke something on my bike or myself every time. I've done O-Rock for 3 years, and I always break something or crash or I flat every time I go there. I flat a tire, and I still somehow make it on the podium. But that's one of those places where everyone has issues. Everyone at some point during the weekend is going to have an issue.
I did. I've only done it once. I think it was 2018, and crashed on like stage 2. Well, flatted stage 1. Got a tube. Had to put a tube in. crashed on the 27 switchback stage and it hurt my shoulder. I didn't even know if I was going to finish, and just like, it was a mess. It's got all the granite of Shepherd Mountain, but they're sharp. Like the granite at Shepherd seems to be rounded off a little bit, but O-Rock is just like square edges everywhere.
Yeah, I've heard your horror stories from O-Rock. I haven't ridden out at O-Rock yet and done that one, but man, I all I hear is horror stories about just things getting trashed out there.
Yeah, O-Rock? Kyle, I don't know that you ever will.
No, that's not in my wheelhouse.
It's an endurance. I mean, it's an endurance event to me.
Yeah. Maybe in like 5 years when I'll ride the old man class and have time to actually be fast again.
I'm interested to see how Shepherd this conversation's turning into Shepherd, but I'm interested to see how Shepherd treats me this weekend, because I'm going to go out there and I have full intentions of riding as hard as possible. I want to see how my bike handles it. I want to see how I handle it.
So actually, before Clinton, I'm sure you have an agenda, but because I'm a gear nerd, before we talk about Shepherd and how you're going to handle it, why don't you tell us a little bit about your bike setup and what you're going to be riding, because I have to know these things.
Yeah, that's good. Works for me.
All right. So I was essentially riding.
Clinton's going to want to know what tires you're running.
I already know. We're going to talk about tires. We're going to talk about it.
So I am riding the setup. I rode the setup this weekend. Okay. Purposely, I rode the setup that I'll be riding down there. My tire setup might change a little bit, but if anything, it'll just get heavier, which sucks.
Right.
So I'm on a Kona Process 134. If you don't know, so this year I got picked up by Kona, so I'm a Kona ambassador. I'm not like a full sponsored, they're not paying me, but I'm a Kona ambassador.
134. Is that a 160 bike?
No, it's a 134. It's a trail bike. It's 134 in the rear. It's a 66-degree head tube angle stock. It's like 68-degree seat tube angle. It's designed to climb good and descend okay. It comes with a 140 fork. I've got a 150 on it. And actually tonight I acquired from one of the guys that I'm training. He hooked me up with a Zeb 160, and I'm going to be running that this weekend at Shepherd to test it out. I think that it's going to work great on that bike.
You'll like this, man. I didn't think there would be any chance at all that I would notice the difference between a Fox Factory 36 and a RockShox 38. I thought there would be no way that I could tell, because I'm just not that. I don't know. I don't consider myself to be that good of a rider. But man, there was a huge difference in how straight that 38 tracked through rough stuff compared to the 36. Like it really.
Up, Kyle, I don't have a 38.
Oh,
don't tell me how good it is.
It's so much faster and so much more stable through the rough stuff. Like it was wildly.
Shut up, Kyle.
So right now I've got right now that bike comes stock with a 140. So I never had a 140 on it. I just got the frame, and I built it up with my kit. But so I've had a 150 Lyric on it, and my big issue is like so for instance, that Lyric, the max volume reducers that it can handle is 5. I've got 4 in it, and I still at least once throughout the weekend I used all the travel, and that's just at Chubb. That's just hitting the square edge, something extremely hard.
Right.
So, and I'm running like 25 or 28% sag. So I'm actually running quite a bit of sag. A lot of people that ride as aggressive as me will run like 20%, but I like to have a little bit more. I'd rather have it ramp up harder. So that's why I'm really excited to try the Zeb, and I'm trying it at 160. So it'll slack the bike out to 65-degree head tube angle. And I think it'll be perfect for me. Cause I've rode big travel bikes. I've had Rocky Mountain Slayer before. And they're not snappy enough for me. I'm so used to being on a BMX bike, and I want to have that poppy feeling. Now I do have a coil on the bike, and I ran it at Shepherd 2 weeks ago. And that was my first time ever running the coil. It's a DVO Jadex. And at first I thought it felt terrible. I'm like, this is wrong. And as soon as I started hitting the chunky stuff fast, I was like, no, this is what I need to be rocking. And it proved right at Chubb. And I'm also rocking flat pedals, and that's my thing. So I think the coil works really well with flat pedals, because it allows me to pedal and keep my feet more composed on the pedals when I'm pedaling through the chunky stuff, which I don't think that's really going to be an issue at Ironton. I don't know. I think the raw lines out there, Ironton, that no one's supposed to know about, wink. I think that those definitely are going to have some more pedaling through chunk than the main lines do. And I'm going to find out this weekend because I plan on pushing all the stages as hard as I can. So I'm running Cush Core. I got carbon rims. I got carbon bars. I got SRAM code RSC brakes. So I went big on the brakes. I'm a heavier rider, so I need them. I just acquired Cane Creek E-Wings cranks with power meter for training purposes.
Yeah, nice.
And I run I got 32 oval up front, chain guide. And I just switched to the 10x52 SRAM Eagle, and I'm running XX1 cassette and a GX derailleur just because when you're hard on shit stuff,
it's easy to replace a $60 derailleur instead of a $200 carbon one.
Right, and the weight penalty is a joke. I don't care. My bike's heavy. I weighed it, and if you follow my Instagram at all, I weighed it yesterday after the race just to see, and it was 36.8 pounds. It's a beast.
Ooh, is it really?
Yeah. Man, I think that's more than my bike.
So
it is.
Which is surprising. I mean,
that's a porky pie.
So you gotta think the coil adds 1.5 pounds because of the coil spring.
I guess that's true. And I didn't realize it added that much.
Yeah, the coil spring is really heavy. It's a huge weight penalty, but the traction is crazy. You always see it in the reviews and you hear about it, and I didn't want to believe it because I'm a BMXer and I'll ride a hardtail. I've raced hardtails. I've won pro enduro events on steel hardtails, and I didn't want to believe that the coil was going to feel as good as it does, unfortunately. But so the weight penalty definitely pays off. I mean, look, I won Chubb against a lot of dudes that are fast and they're cross country guys and they can pedal. And I'm beating these dudes on this 37-pound bike with a coil and on flat pedals. So it works.
130 mil travel, 37-pound bike at that.
Yeah, and it's full carbon. It's a full carbon frame. I'm running, but here's the thing. I've got Onyx hubs and I've been running them for years, and they are heavy. I mean, really heavy.
But very fast, yeah.
They're fast and they're smooth, and I have instant engagement. But they're the original Onyx hubs, and they have a full steel driver, so they're heavy. I mean, that rear hub is like almost. I think that rear hub's 500 grams. So just to put that in perspective, like the new DT Swiss 240 EXT hubs, both of their hubs, front and rear, are lighter than my back hub.
Right. Well, and those Sprague clutch assemblies are just they're heavy weights anyways.
Yeah, it's all steel.
But that weight's really tight. I mean, it's not having to spin. That's not as much of a penalty as having like a super heavy tire. Which
you mean like 1,800 gram downhill tires, Clinton? Let's talk about tires.
First of all, that G5 I just bought is 1440. Says it right there on the tags. The Maxxis I think is around 1,400 or 1,500 that I'm gonna run.
Good.
But right now I've got 1,900 or 1,000 on the front and 1,200 on the back with some Vittoria airliners in there.
Hey, man. No, the 2.4 Mazda is 1,300 grams.
The Enduro casing, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I've got.
Okay, that's what I got.
That's what I got.
You run Vittorias?
So I ran 2 of those Enduro casing, front and rear, with no Cush core, all winter. They've got 500 miles on them, no issues, no flats. Wow. I went out to Shepherd. I put Cush core back in the back.
Good idea.
And I was bummed that I didn't put it in the front because my first run, I took like the double black, whichever one is to the right, the super chunky one. And I heard my front rim hit rocks probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 times on the way down. I was like, dang. So, so now I've got actually I went to the bike shop. I put my front Mazda on the back, and I went to the bike shop. They had one of the new, what is it? The
Big
Betty from Schwalbe, and it's the super trail casing. So it's a 1,200 gram tire. So it's kind of a happy medium, because the Big Betty, the Super Gravity, is like 1,450 grams. So I think that's a perfect front tire. So if I could get and actually tonight I found out that I think it has more cornering traction than the Mazda, which is crazy because those Mazdas have an insane amount of cornering grip. I don't know how, but they do.
Yeah, my best stage at Chubb somehow was stage 4, which I would not have guessed, which was
That's
the
one of the
one
worst
that,
ones.
yeah. But what it had though, were a lot of, you'd come into a corner, but right before the corner there'd be like some sort of rock or off camber like water bar log or whatever.
Sure.
And I was like not touching the brakes. I was just like, I have no legs, so if I'm going to do any good, I cannot afford to slow down and have to pedal to make up for it. So I was just like coming off those things sideways into the corner, no brakes, and I was almost surprised every time that my tire just grabbed and ripped me around the corner. Like, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
it's working. I can't believe it's working.
So one thing I did want to mention is Monday when I got back from the race, I was looking at the times because I wanted to see how I did, against everybody else on all the stages, right? And I did notice that there's someone that should have been on the podium that wasn't, and I kind of knew this going into the race after I did some research, but I think his name's Devin Jarrett.
Yeah, he's fast.
Yep.
So he won like 2 of the stages, and he was only a second off of me, and the stages that he did win, I was only 1 second behind him. So I calculated if he ran the same, so he broke his chain. So I messaged him on Facebook to tell him, hey dude, like I see you, like I know you're fast, but I know he's like a local out there too. So that's a slight advantage, especially at Chubb. Man, there was so many sneaky lines out there.
Yeah, I didn't.
I
watched I watched. If you guys are listening, you haven't watched Jordan's GoPro video. Jordan, what's your YouTube channel called?
It's Jordan Shad, SHAD.
Okay. If you're a St. Louis local, Chubb, like watch his GoPro video from the race. I watched it and I was just sitting there shaking my head like, oh, I should have went there, should have went there, should have went there. I mean, that wouldn't have changed anything because I crashed twice and, that cost me probably
line choice,
45 seconds.
That's why I try to get people that are like fresh into enduro racing, or even people that aren't fresh into enduro racing. A lot of people don't think outside the box when it comes to line choice. Like it'll make your race easier on yourself and your body and your bike, like picking a better line choice. Even if sometimes if it's a slower line, it might give you the most speed, you know what I mean? Momentum. Yeah. And that's what, especially a place like Chubb, momentum's a big deal. But yeah, so Devin Jarrett, I guess he broke his chain on the first stage, so he was a minute back, which that's pretty much it. You're done. But he still ended up winning. I think he won 2 stages. I won 3 stages. If he would have got the same time as me on stage 1, I would have only beat him by 3 seconds.
Wow. I mean, I knew he was fast. I didn't know he's that fast. Yeah. I knew he was fast I knew he was really good at downhill because he actually goes out to like Tennessee and races like Bull Crown downhill. I didn't know he had the legs though.
He's strong. Devin's a strong rider.
I'm not saying he would have had the same time as me, but I was just trying to be fair because I wanted to see, I wanted to see where he was at, and so it would have been a really close race. He would have definitely been sitting on the second seat if he didn't break his chain. I'm like 95% sure, unless he like fumbled hard, which stage 1 was one of the toughest stages. So, so that was kind of interesting to see. And I like doing that too, because there's been races where that stuff's happened to me. Like, and I'll go out and I'll win like 4 out of the 7 stages, but I like crash on one stage and I end up being 5th place. It's like, dang. But no one recognizes.
We've got a local guy that I'm thinking of a guy who did not race. I'm thinking of a guy who did not race Chubb. He's kind of a local legend. And I met him when I lived in Texas at his first enduro ever was the Dyno Enduro in 2017 in Texas. I don't know if I should mention his name, but he's very well known for just that sort of thing, like winning multiple stages and then blowing up a tire. Or just like that's stage of his first enduro ever. He sent it off a drop that really everyone was rolling because it really wasn't meant to be a drop, and he just hucked it and blew up his rear wheel, and that was it. But I'll just say his name. It's Eric Pirtle. Everybody listening that's from St. Louis will know who I'm talking about. He's super fast. He won the Trans Sierra Norte the first year they had it in the pro class. Like, that's a big race.
Is Pirtle racing BME?
He is racing the Masters 40 plus class. Yes.
Wow.
He could win that thing.
I wouldn't be surprised if he wins. I'll be riding with him this weekend down there at Ironton again. I rode with him last weekend at Ironton.
Yeah, somebody hooked you guys up with tickets. That was weird.
Yeah.
Oh well, good for you guys.
Hey, I talked to actually, I don't know if I should talk about this on here, but I don't think it matters. But I talked to Jagged Axe and told them I'd be out there Friday, like probably Friday evening, and they were like, "Yeah, just hit us up and we'll come ride with you." I was like, "Awesome."
Well,
people, man. The Jagged Axe.
Awesome. I might not publish this till Friday evening, and then it's too late, and the park's open the next day, and like we don't have to worry about this stuff anymore.
There'll be 30 people out there Friday evening, like, "Hey, we heard,"
with their lights. They show up with their lights, like, "Heard it's open. We listened to the podcast at 4."
Yeah, right. So, yeah, that.
I mean, as long as you ask the to me, you're asking the trail builders if it's cool, then it's cool.
Right.
Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
So hey, so with that said, so I mean, like Jordan, what are your expectations for Shepherd? I mean, I know you've had some miles down there. You've been getting some riding in. Have you raced an enduro that's that style of enduro, like an actual real enduro?
I just want to preface: Jordan came down for a test day. Like he and 69 other people were invited. He didn't just he's not been poaching Shepherd without asking.
All right.
Just want to clarify.
So, what's your, have you raced an enduro that's kind of like that style of terrain versus, the pedally stages that we know in the Midwest, and then kind of what are your expectations and goals for the weekend?
So I raced. Let's see. So after my first enduro ever, which I did pretty good at, love it. We talked about in 2018. I had a few buddies hit me up and say, "Hey man, we're gonna go race the BME at Keystone." This was the last time they had the BME at Keystone. This is in 2018. And they're like, "Hey, man, you should come race it with us. You do good, sign up pro and all this." And I was like, okay. I didn't know what BME meant. I didn't know that meant like, oh, hey, there's going to be like the top dogs are going to be there. Like Richie Rude and the other guy that he rides with. I can't think of his name. But, there's going to be a bunch
Neer,
of
Jubal Davis, Casper Williams.
Sean Neer.
Back then, it might have been Cody Kelly. Who knows? But, yeah, Sean Neer.
I think Cody Kelly was out there too. And
it's factory pro teams.
Right. And I also didn't realize that, oh, hey, this is like Keystone is Yeti's stomping grounds. Like all those guys, like that's where they rip. Like when they're just out having fun, that's where they rip. So I'm like, sure, let's do it. So I go out there. I'm riding at the time I'm riding a 27.5 Trek Remedy. Nothing heavy duty on the bike at all. I probably had Maxxis Exo casing tires, so maybe a double down or something in the back. I don't know. Nothing crazy for my brakes. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, right? Didn't know anything about arm pump. I'd never done anything like this in my life. And actually what's crazy is Ironton's going to be my first BME since this race. So at this BME, it's a stage Keystone. If you've ever been, either of you guys been there?
I've been skiing there many times, but never bike
It's not
riding.
An enduro race. It's a stage down. It's a stage downhill race.
Right.
So it's 4 stages of pretty much everything you got for 10 to 12 minutes of just holding on to your bike because it's super steep. And so we go out there, we pre-ride. We get up the next day. My forearms and hands are smoked. Just wrecked, dude. Like I wake up and I'm like, I can barely hold my bars. I'm like, this is going to be bad. So I drop into the first stage. Mind you, I'm on SRAM, still SRAM 11, older 11 speed, like XO1 drivetrain, no chain guide, nothing like that. Drop into the first stage, chain jumps off, and these are chunky stages. Chain jumps off, and I just keep riding it because I'm like, it's Keystone. I could literally have rode all of the first stage without having to pedal, and I probably could have still, there was 20 pros. I probably could have still been in the middle of the pack with a good run with no chain. So I'm just like, oh, you're good. I kept looking down. The chain is like, it's wrapped around my pedal. on the right side, and it's just kind of bouncing around. And finally, it jumps into my back wheel, breaks a bunch of spokes, locks my back wheel up. So I'm, 10 people end up going by me. I'm just stressed out, trying to pull this chain out. Finally get it out, and I ride to the bottom. I spend an hour trying to fix it. I finally fix it. I had a multi-tool and a kit with me, and finally get it fixed and rideable. And I ride up to the top, and the bike is just making all sorts of noises. Just literally nothing happy about what's going on with my bike. And so then you had to pedal up this fire road to get to the top of stage 2. So I get up to the top of stage 2. And have you guys ever done a BME?
Nope.
So like when you do a BME, you have to you're supposed to stay with your group. Like pros ride first, and you're supposed to drop in with the pros. So I get up to the top of stage 2, and mind you, I'm like an hour back from where I started, and and I'm in I got the worst state of mind ever right at the time. And so I get up there, and there's like a couple of women dropping in, and I'm like, what is going on? And they're like, are you a pro? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, you need to drop in right now, or you're just not even going to be able to drop in at all. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, everyone's already gone, and we're on the last woman pro. So I'm like all stressed out. I just did like this 5-mile, straight up climb that I've been climbing for 30 minutes trying to get my bike to shift because the derailleur's bent, my derailleur hanger's bent, my wheel's wobbling. And I get up there, and I'm doing this climb, and so I drop in. And it was a pretty easy stage. It was just really fast. And I get to the bottom, and I was like, yeah, my race is pretty much over. It's 4 stages. And I probably lost, 10 minutes on stage 1. So I get to the bottom, and I'm talking to the guys I was out there with and telling them everything that had happened. Because they're like, where have you been? And so I'm telling them all this stuff. I had to fix like 5 bent links in my chain. And so I only had like 4 gears on my bike that actually kind of worked. Yeah, it was bad. It was so bad. Like I had to push up half this climb because I couldn't get into my top gears. And so I run stage 2, and actually stage 2 was pretty clean. It was wide open stage, and out there at Keystone in the summer, like when it's dry, it's like moon dust. And if you've ever ridden in anything like it, you almost have less traction in this stuff than you do on slippery, wet rocks. Cause it's just like, it's powder. Like you hit these berms, and they're just like powder. Like you need like a mud tire to get traction in this stuff. So anyways, I run that stage clean, no issues. And at that, you know how it goes, and I was new to enduro. And when you get way down on a stage, like you automatically are trying to make up for it, whether you think that you're going to be able to make up for it or not. So, I ripped stage 2, and I actually think I did pretty good. I think overall I was top 5 or 6 on stage 2. So I was like, dang, all right. But I knew that I was dead last because of my time from stage 1. So, I get with all my buddies, and my good friend Brad Moe, who talked me into going out there, used to live out there, and he used to ride Keystone every year for I don't know how many, 5 years straight or whatever. He's like, let's go to this bar and do some shots. You got nothing to lose at this point. So we're going to this bar. I did like 2 shots, and they're all talking to me, and everyone's like, hey, you could still get a stage win, and that'd be a pretty badass thing. And I'm like, it started getting in my head, and I'm like, all right, I'll try and get a stage win.
Your friend's a jerk.
Oh no, totally. And he agrees. So to get to stage 3, you had to ride the chairlift. Big deal. So you get up to the top, and stage 3 started right at the top of the chairlift, and you drop in. And I wish that I had footage of this because it was insane. So you dropped into stage 3 out in the open, and you're out in the open, and then you drop into the woods. And stage 3 was top to bottom, whole mountain. Probably 12 minutes of just rowdy, chunky, steep stuff. So the first stage was wide open, and you could pedal down, and there's a ton of spectators there. And I dropped in like 4 people back. I think Richie Rude and Sean Neer dropped in first, and then there was one guy, and then they're like, "Who wants to drop in next?" And I was like, "Let's do this." So I drop in full tilt, going like 30 miles an hour through the woods, and then there was like 2 or 3 doubles, like rollers, going into the woods, and then you had a hard right, and I had practiced bunny hopping these rollers at like 30 and just completely jumping over them into this corner, and it worked perfect in practice. Well, I must have hung up my back tire on that first roller because I don't remember anything until I was in an ambulance 45 minutes later going to the hospital.
Oh,
so
gosh.
I caught my back tire on that first roller. Like I didn't pre-hop soon enough and just blew up down through the woods. I had 100% carbon helmet on, cracked it in half. I had a concussion. I grade like 3.5 or 4 AC separation, which you can still see my collarbone. Like my collarbone's not connected to my shoulder anymore. I broke my collarbone and I broke 2 vertebrae in my back, and I had contusions all over my body, head to toe.
Oh no, man! Holy cow!
Good night.
Yeah, so like I was off.
Dude, I was half joking when I said your buddy's a jerk, but your buddy's a jerk.
So yeah, I was off the bike for a long time. And then, so yeah, that was my first BME experience. So this is going to be my second BME experience, but
hopefully it goes better for you.
I've raced a lot of enduros since then. And like in 2019, let's see, I took 3rd in the Southern Enduro Series overall. And let's see, I was racing, what's his name?
Carson
Lang. Carson Lang took 1st. So I took 3rd. I was behind, what is his name? He's from Kansas City, actually. He's a pro XC racer. Anyways, so I took 3rd in the Southern Enduro Series in 2019. And I started really bad. Like Northwoods, I took like 10th. I thought I was going to do really well, and I didn't. Because coming off an injury like that, I'd been training and trying to get back in shape. And I'm like, oh, I did really good, And then I come in and give them my timing slip, and they're like, yeah, you took, 10th overall. I was like, wow. But I had a couple of crashes. But anyway, so I took 3rd in Southern Enduro Series, and then I took 2nd in Arkansas Enduro Series, and I could have easily won that. I think I was just riding well inside my limits. Garrett Hubbard won overall, which he is by no means a slouch on the trail. He's fast, but and actually I won Red Star, and that was on hardtail. I think I
heard about that actually.
For the Arkansas Enduro Series, the whole thing I raced on a Chromag Stylus set up mullet with a 160 fork. A bike weighed like 35 or 36 pounds. That's what I raced the whole series on.
36-pound hardtail.
That's incredible.
But I'll tell you what, man, no one was following me out of the corner. I don't care. That thing cornered so hard. Like once you got used to the way that you could corner with it, it would just corner great. Unless it was really rocky, then it just sucked. But
yeah,
I'll tell you what though, like the Chubb Enduro was by far, I would say, more technical than any Arkansas Enduro Series. I'm not going to give it more than Southern Enduro Series just because you got O-Rock in there.
Oh, I know. Well, and in Southern Enduro Series, you probably never went this far south. I used to live in Houston, so Camp Eagle is where Alex Scott with Jagged Axe grew up. And it's not as much elevation as like Shepherd, but it's got like that kind of some steep, crazy, rocky, like techie, slippy, chunky sections. Texas racing, man, and hill country, it's just loose. Like, I don't know how to describe the corners because there's gravelly stuff in Missouri too, but I'm telling you, Texas, some of the corners, it's just like, it'd be like if you were cornering on pavement with a bunch of softballs and baseballs rolling around under you.
Ooh.
It's weird.
Well, I did race, let's see, 2019 I raced Zombie Goat.
Oh, you went all the way down there.
Yeah.
That's a good ways down there.
Which I didn't do good at that race. That was my
San Antonio.
That was actually my first race after the Keystone BME. So I think I took like 10th, but there was a lot of, let's see, Scott Countryman was down there.
Yeah, they get really good
there were
riders down there.
There were some guys from Colorado down there. But Lang was down there. He won it. I think Countryman took like second or third. There's another guy from Texas who's a BMX racer. He took like second or third. He's an older guy.
That might have been John Anderson or Chris Gross from Houston.
Chris Gross.
He was a buddy of mine when I lived down there and got
into
really?
Riding. Oh, small world.
In the enduro world, it is, man. Like that's where I didn't even own a mountain bike until Christmas is fall of 2016. I don't think I didn't own a real mountain bike.
Is that what it's been? Has it been 5 years since I talked to you into buying that Remedy?
I think so.
Wow.
Jordan. So I grew up. I've raced motocross my whole life. That's what I did. But in 2015, we were about to move to Houston, and I was riding moto at a practice day at a track in Arkansas and broke my femur. So then we moved. I didn't take my motocross bike, obviously, and talked my wife into letting me get like a dirt jump bike to double as a trail bike because I knew there were some dirt jumps close to where I lived, and started riding the trails on a 26-inch intense taser hardtail with a tall seat post and single speed and a rear brake only, and got into it that way. And then once my leg got stronger and I was like riding with all these people who had real trail bikes, I finally convinced my wife to let me buy like a real mountain bike. I got a 2016 Remedy, and then I found out about enduro, and this is a super embarrassing story because I didn't understand that enduro is not really downhill racing. It's you start at a higher elevation in Texas and whatever, but there's a whole lot of sprint pedaling involved, and I didn't understand that. And went to my first race was Zombie Goat 2017, and I'm extremely embarrassed to tell this story again. I've told it many times. I signed up for the pro class because I thought it was downhill racing, and I was like, I come from motocross, like I can go down a hill fast, like that'd be okay. And
I remember you telling me that. They're like, all right, Klint, let's see how this goes.
Oh my gosh, it was awful. I got done and I looked at the results and I was sitting there thinking, well, shoot, I have a better chance of beating Eli Tomac than these guys, which is zero. I mean, I'm not that fast of a motocrosser either, but I could at least race the local pro class back then in moto. But yeah, man. So I learned my lesson real fast, that it is a whole different world, but I love it. It's a fun scene, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's a great sport. So I told that whole long story about my first BME experience, and I haven't been back since. I decided that I needed to stay like regional, like more regional, local, and get it figured out. So I think I've got it pretty good figured out. And then COVID hit and kind of screwed me up for 2020 because I had big plans for racing BMEs in 2020. And then didn't really do much racing. I raced 200-mile gravel races in 2020, which I actually did really well at both of them. I raced the Mid-South, and which was just a mud, oh man, that was a fight. It was like I was on my bike for like 8.5 hours.
Oh no.
And then I raced the Gravelers Nationals in Lawrence, which I ended up taking like 21st or 22nd overall. And I didn't race. I just raced my age group. I didn't race in the pro category, which I was with those guys most of the time. So, and then I raced cross country race in Fort Scott and took third there in Cat 1 on my enduro bike.
Wow.
So you put some light tires on that process and a shorter fork back on it wouldn't be terrible.
Yeah, no. Well, I was on a 153 27.5 process at the time. That I had set up mullet, and it was like 35 pounds, and I was racing these dudes on like specialized hardtails with no dropper post, and I'm like, whatever, still gonna send it.
You'll have to come down my way in the fall again and do something like the BT Epic or One-Eyed Dog or whatever. 55 miles single track, or you can do other times of year you can do 100-mile ones. I
want to do the Buffalo Headwaters Challenge too. So yeah, that's all I did last year. I raced 2 gravel races and a cross country race. I didn't race any enduro because there really wasn't any. I did the virtual Arkansas Enduro series, just to do it.
Yeah.
But so my plan my real expectations and what I'm training for is to stand on the podium, the pro podium down there at Shepherd. I know that's a long shot with the dudes that are going to be there, but I think that this event is very what's the word I'm looking for? It's a very interesting event for BME style races because most of the time there's a lot of guys that have a really big hometown advantage. And this is going to be one of those first times where there's going to be a BME at a brand new location in a part of the country where a lot of these pros don't live. So, they're not going to know the terrain. And I'm not saying that they can't learn it fast, but it's going to be the best chance I have to do really well against some of the big guys, So
that's and not only that too, but even the local guys, like even you. I mean, regardless of it's been more or not, but I mean, like really, you've only had one full day of riding there so far, and that's about what anybody else has got. I mean, Klint's was obviously completely pivotal in getting that whole project to happen. So he's probably got as many laps out there as anybody besides the builders.
On one trail. I mean, really, the only trail out there that I have lots of time on that I could draw. I could close my eyes and just draw it out every turn is the. It's called Cannonball. It's the black line that starts with the squirrel catcher, real steep wood roll in, and goes from there. That one I know like the back of my hand, but other than that, that's what
I mean though. Even at that,
they basically built everything else in the winter in the mud, and it wasn't rideable.
Right. So that's what's going to be cool is, I mean, Clinton's got a lot of laps out there and Klint, I think is going to do extraordinarily well. I don't think Klint, you're not shooting pro classes
No, I'm doing expert.
Right. You know what I mean? So, but that's what's going to be cool though.
Let's be real
to your point, Jordan, is that not only will the traditional pros that get to see things frequently and have a home field advantage, really nobody's going to have a home field advantage. Like Jordan, you probably got as good a shot of anybody is just getting down there and getting miles in. You know what I mean? It's going to be really interesting to see how that pans out for legitimate factory pros to be coming in and riding something that's really unridden. And then, aside from a couple local guys like yourself, they're going to put some time in out there. It should be awesome to see how it goes.
I'm really interested to see how early some of these pro teams guys start showing up.
Yeah, that's
do we start seeing them in the middle of April on the weekends or weekdays, coming out early? I don't know.
I follow Cody Kelly and Richie Rude and those guys and a lot of the other fast pros, and I'm just waiting to see their Instagram feed start to pop up with any day. I'm waiting for it to see them out there at Shepherd just putting in laps and what are they going to bring side by sides and stuff out there or
how not gonna let them.
The
city's not going to let them.
They're going to have. They'll definitely probably
e-bikes
have e-bikes. Yeah, they'll have e-bikes, which that's still a huge advantage out there, man. That's a big deal. So that's why I'm trying to get out there. I plan on going out there this weekend, and then I'm going to be racing the Passion Play Enduro next weekend, and then either the weekend after that or the next weekend before the race, I'm probably going to come down there again. I just want to get as much time as I can in on those.
Yeah, I already bought a ticket for the 24th or something just to get that's the weekend before, just to get a little extra eyes on those trails.
But yeah, so that's the word I was looking for. Unique. This is a very unique opportunity for someone like me to, put my name in there. If I can get on the podium, I mean, honestly, I'm going to be extremely happy with a top 10 finish down there, but I'm shooting for top 5. If I can get top 5 and stand up there with those guys, that's a big deal because I'm a no name to them. You know what I mean? They don't care about me. I'm winning local races, whatever.
That would be a huge accomplishment. Yeah, man.
So that's what I'm shooting for. That's what I trained for all winter. I've been in the gym all winter. And actually my trainer, Grant Bradshaw, was down there with me. I trained him on the bike and he trains me in the gym. He was down there. That was his first enduro at Chubb and he had a blast. He's excited about the sport.
Wait, the guy on the spot is your trainer?
No, no,
Is that
no,
who?
no,
No, not
no,
on the spot.
no.
Okay,
No, John
bad.
Herman was on the spot, and he.
that's right. Okay,
I
that bike
am
was
actually.
cool.
Yeah, that's a really cool bike. He rides a couple spots. Actually, I think all of his bikes are spots except for his gravel bike is an Otso. But he's a big endurance guy, and I'm working with him in the woods on we're training him up, getting him dialed in. So that's a new thing that I'm going to start here pretty soon. I'm going to start doing one-on-one training sessions with people. So if they're looking to learn how to jump better, corner better, they just want some advice on how to race enduro or anything in that in the enduro realm, that's pretty much what I'm going to do. So
what's your what's just out of curiosity, since you rode during lunch, whatever, what is your 9 to 5? Do you mind?
So
I'm curious.
I'm an avionics technician for Garmin. So
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So I work, I mainly do like custom avionics installations on planes that weren't certified with Garmin avionics. So we will add our autopilots or something to, let's say, a Cessna 182 that didn't come from the factory with that option. So we'll put it in and we'll certify it, test fly it, all that stuff. So that's what I do 9 to 5 currently. My boss
actually
every
really
day.
interesting.
Oh, that's awesome. My buddy's actually just finishing up building his Sonics right now, and I think he's looking at some stuff like that.
Nice. So yeah, my boss every day, every time I come back from a race, he's like, "You putting in your 2 weeks?" I'm like, "I'm not that fast. I'm getting there. Not that fast."
Well, at least he's like supportive of it.
Oh no, they're super supportive of it. Actually, I got almost everyone in my hangar. When I showed up, there was no bikes. Now we have 2 bike racks in the hangar, and everyone's got their own bikes, and everyone goes on lunch rides on lunch. So I've been there for going on, I'm almost getting to 3 years now. So it's a thing now. And we have 2 trail systems that are within a 10-minute drive. So I can go ride 6 or 7 miles of hard single track on lunch and, within an hour, and come back and go back to work. And then, so it's kind of cool.
You must not work next to people that much if you come back from a ride and don't have time to get a shower or whatever.
Yeah, well, I'm an avionics technician, so I got my office space, but it's not that bad.
So
in the summer,
my boss, I had to tell my boss via Facebook Messenger Sunday that I totally smashed my phone in a crash and that I had to get it replaced first thing Monday morning. And she was like, "You have a wife and kids now, right?" So I'm like, "Thanks, Mom. I'm aware."
Right.
She said, "I'm sure your mom tells you that all the time." I'm like, "Yeah, but I didn't say this to her, but I kind of want to be like, yeah, but I got this job with you because I could do it in a cast."
Right.
I didn't say that, but I was thinking it.
Sure.
I don't think she'll ever listen to this podcast. She might. Who knows? I don't think she knows I do it.
Hey.
Yeah.
This is actually, by the way, this is my first podcast ever.
Fun, right?
Yeah, we've done a few with some people that are fast. Like I said, we tend to do. We're not winners. Me, Kyle, and Ryan are not winners, really. So we get winners, but so far our fast people have been long distance riders, like
gotcha.
People doing gravel races and cross country and endurance marathon type stuff.
A female world record holder, even. Yep.
Nice. That's pretty awesome.
Who dropped off my tires yesterday? That was awesome. So real quick, this has actually gone a lot longer than I was expecting. So real quick, because I love tires, it's like my favorite thing. If you don't end up keeping the Mazda for the BME, which I would be surprised if you did, because you don't want to risk it, right? Like, what do you think you might try out for rear?
Honestly, I really like this Big Betty that I have, so I might get and like I said, it's in the Super Trail casing, so I might get another one of those and put it in the back with the gravity casing, gravity casing. Yeah.
Okay. I'm like I said, I've got a G5, which is Bontrager's like downhill tire.
Yeah.
The rear. And then I'm running the Maxxis that everybody and their brother has that I still haven't tried up front. I'm doing DH casings both ends. It's like, well, if I flat, it's over. So I'm just gonna pack the extra weight.
I definitely won't keep the Mazda on there. I still got it on there right now just because, with anything in the bike industry right now, it's kind of tough to get your hands on a specific item. So, whoa, dogs, relax. I have 3 dogs, sorry. So, I'll probably get a Big Betty, or maybe I'll move that Big Betty to the back and put a Magic Mary up front. I've never been a huge fan of Specialized. I've never been a huge fan of Schwalbe, but I think their new casings are a lot better than they were in the past. So we'll see. We'll see how it does this weekend. That Big Betty handled Chubb really well, and it doesn't have a scratch on it, so that's a good indication. But I am running Cushcore front and rear too, so that helps the tire out a lot.
Yep. Well, I appreciate the time. We've been recording for an hour and 5 minutes. We've been on here for an hour and 13, which is, I thought we might talk for half an hour.
Sure.
So I think we'll wrap this one up. I might do just a Chubb recap podcast by myself, next week or something, just kind of recapping the day and all the things that went wrong. Because my day was comical. I mean, somebody had been with me all day, they would have just been laughing at me for lots of different reasons. It was comical, really. So I'll do a separate pod for that. We don't have time for that tonight. But Kyle, you have any other questions you want to throw in there?
No, man. Ever thinking about making a return to BMX racing at all?
I get that question a lot, but at this point, I don't see that happening. But I would like to get back into. I would like to get back into it, like just getting a USA BMX license, and maybe just going out to the track and doing some training, because it is great cross training. So yeah, I could see maybe down the road, hopping into just using it for training or whatever. I've got my own BMX case and stuff at the house, so, and I actually have a pump track. I mean, it's kind of funny. I have a small backyard, but I've got a pump track in my backyard, and I just recently built a foam pit that I have a roll in off the back of my house, so I can learn backflips and 360s.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah, I'm
you ever think about getting into motocross? Got a track out here at the farm.
Yeah, that would be great.
It'll help your arm pump. That's the one thing I hear other mountain bikers complain about at a few different races I've been to that I just don't have an issue with.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of like Sam Hill and a bunch of the other guys. I know that they ride motocross for that reason, for hanging on. But I actually do a lot of training stuff now, and I do a ton of pull-ups. I do a ton of deadlifts, and that stuff helps with the arm pump big time. Oh yeah,
grip strength is probably really good.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, cool. Well, if you find yourself in St. Louis and you want to get a lap at the BMX track, I'll be racing cruiser class on a 20-pound, 26-inch dirt jump bike, and then my 4-year-old is going to be racing a novice 5 and under this year. So we'll be there. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Awesome.
And we got the pump track too up there on the way. Well, you probably don't come that way. It's fat. I would assume when you come to Shepherd, you end up going down through like Columbia. Head south down 63, be faster.
Yeah. I don't take 70 at all. So.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on. I'm gonna let you go. So listeners, if you want us to follow up with any questions, email okayestmtb@gmail.com, or you can just hit us up on our Facebook page. That's no problem. And if you have some questions for Jordan, I'm sure we won't make him do another podcast, but I can reach out to him and ask him if there's any listener questions. Jordan, there probably won't be. Nobody listens to this thing.
Hey, I'd be happy. I'd be happy to come on again too. That's not a big deal at all.
Well, if you manage to get your podium goal, if you get top 5, if you get top 10 at the BME, I mean, we'll probably have to talk about that a little bit.
All right.
Yeah. No, totally.
We for sure will.
That said, too,
what's top 5?
What's your social too, in case anybody wants to reach out to you?
So just Jordan Sheiderich is how you can find me on Instagram or Facebook. It's real simple. I don't have anything crazy. It's just Instagram's just my first and last name, Jordan Sheiderich, and same thing with Facebook. So.
All right. Well, that's it for us. Appreciate it, Jordan.
Yeah.